Well, how important is race politics during a general election? Based on past election results, it is clear that voters have generally cast their ballots along racial lines. In the Western Cape, where the coloured population is the largest demographic, this vote has also always been sought after by political parties. But according to Census 2022, there's been a change in the demographics in a key area in the province. Now, does this mean voting patterns are likely to change? While coloured population remains the largest demographic in the Western Cape, the latest census indicates that there are now more black African people in the Cape Metro than coloured people, and the IEC says 63% of the registered voters reside in the Metro. The black African population now stands at over 45% versus the coloured population, which is at just over 35%. All right, let's bring in political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng now. She joins us via video link just to weigh in on the Cape Town demographic changes ahead of this election. Asanda, thank you so much for your time. Let's then look at, this race question, particularly that is being attributed, to the Western Cape. I mean, what do we make then of just having seen a number of political parties, in fact, also one independent candidate that we interviewed on the show, bringing in particularly the so-called coloured vote? I mean, is this important issue to factor in the run-up to these elections, particularly in that province?
Yes, I think race plays a very important role in the Western Cape in particular. We know that the DA has managed to continue to be the majority party, or at least have enough votes to be close enough to the majority, because it was getting support from the then majority coloured population and also the Indian members of the population. Also important to mention is that Cape Town has the most white people in South Africa. So if you are white and you are in South Africa, you are more likely to be in Cape Town and the Western Cape in general than you are to be in any other province. And so because of this and these factors, the DA has continued to be able to be the majority party, or the party that governs, unlike the ANC, which governs all the other provinces. And so what we're seeing now is that, particularly with the politics of Palestine versus Israel versus Palestine, and the DA's support for Israel, it has led to many in the coloured population saying that in this election, unlike the others, they will no longer be giving their vote to the DA. And of course, the other main difference between this particular election and the previous one is that you now have the Patriotic Alliance, which started to show some, popularity in the last election, and seems to have actually made a concerted effort in trying to gain more popularity. And of course, you've also got the ANC, who has at various points tried to, regain the popularity and the majority that they once had, using various strategies and means as well. And so the Western Cape has gone from being almost a given that it's going to be the DA who's going to lead, to it being a highly contested area with everyone, including the EFF. I've seen some IFP posters, I've seen some Rise Mzansi posters, and so everyone is effectively now taking the Western Cape as open, competition, and available and possible for anyone to be the winner. And we must remember that for most of the DA's reign in the Western Cape, it has been in government, in part because it was in coalition, not necessarily because it continuously won the amount that it needed. In fact, to remove the ANC, it was a coalition government where the DA was the majority that unseated the ANC.
Now, looking at, the province at large, if suggested indications on the basis of plausibility are accurate, that the DA majority is in trouble, and it is also at risk of losing its long-held but declining majority, in the event the DA then comes in below the 50% mark, let's say, who then is the party likely to go into a coalition with, if it is then a DA-led coalition, particularly if you listen to, some of the utterances that John Steenhuisen has been making, in the new entrance to the political space?
Well, you have a couple of people who have aligned themselves with the DA. The first one is the ACDP, who has been their partner since pretty much 1994. And then you've got the Moon Pact, which many people have made a joke out of it, but it is a political organization or amalgamation of political parties that the DA intends to use. And in there, you've got the IFP, you've got Action SA, you've got the Freedom Front Plus, and various other political parties that are smaller and not necessarily as popular, but are led by people who were popular at some point in the Western Cape, which, these are the political parties that are likely to be in coalition with the Democratic Alliance. However, we've seen that, in the Patriotic Alliance has said, particularly in the area where the DA hasn't been able to be the majority vote, which is the Overstrand and various other places within the Western Cape itself, it has been in coalition with 5 political parties, which are more local parties, but they have the potential, because they have the popularity, to actually take on the previously, as I've said, taken for grantedness of the majority of the DA.
Asanda, I've got one more question to squeeze in. Let's look at very quickly the prospects then of Rise Mzansi. I mean, we've seen this party also at loggerheads with the DA. It is in the Western Cape currently also campaigning. It's on a drive to unite the province and lessen inequality, it says, through its proposed plans of social housing, etc. How do you view then the prospects of this party?
Well, I think the Rise Mzansi can actually make some gains in the Western Cape, precisely because, unlike the DA, they don't shy away from engaging with issues around social inequality and the impact of race in the social inequality. The fact that in South Africa, if you are black, you are more likely to be poor than you are likely to be rich. And if you are white, you are more likely to be rich than you are to be poor, simply because of the history of this country and the fact that not enough has been done to end the inequality that happens to place itself along race-based lines, because that is how apartheid built the infrastructure of inequality, and how the infrastructure of inequality continues to be perpetuated, particularly in the Western Cape, where the DA has ensured that, white privilege and the interests of white people are prioritized over the interests of others. If you just look at, the state of service delivery in townships, colored and black, and you look at it and you compare it to the white suburbs, you'll see that the DA continues to prioritize people who are white versus, some of the people who have maintained and kept them in power. And I think they are fighting with colored people in particular, and Muslims in particular, is going to lead to them hemorrhaging many votes over this Israel issue. And I think that's why they're panicking, and you're seeing John Steenhuisen saying some unsavory things, and you're even seeing Helen Zille crawling out of the woodwork and doing interviews, which she hasn't done in a really long time. And so they are in a state of panic, and they do fear losing the Democratic Alliance, because they've also ran out of favor with many white people who are simply tired of their racist and openly discriminatory and quite nasty politics, really. And you see this particularly on Twitter and other social media, and even just in general engagements with people. People are beginning to say that they don't want to be associated with the racism of the DA, and are looking for alternatives that can ensure that, the services are delivered, but without the slice of racism that comes with DA service delivery.
Asanda, thank you so much for that. Of course, political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng there, just helping us unpack the importance of race politics during a general election, particularly in the Western Cape.